Is it to be in a room filled with civic technologists? So those of you who don't know me, my name is Andrew Raziej, and along with my partner Mika Sifri, we founded this place called Civic Hall, and it was built for you. This is a place of collaborative work. It's an event space. It is designed to make it easy for people who really care about the civic fabric of society, whether it's in this country or elsewhere around the world, to work together to find resources, whether they be design resources, strategic resources, technical resources, funding resources, emotional, social, psychological, or food to come to Civic Hall. And it's a real honor to have one of our inaugural events be this particular one because we are longtime collaborators and advisors to Code for America, friends with Jen Pahlka and her team. Very happy that she's now back in our midst after having done a stint in government. And it's a real honor to be able to introduce her to you tonight. And for those of you who are curious about Civic Hall, find Mika or I and one of our staff will be happy to talk to you about joining events and other things that we're planning here. And any ideas you have for other events we're really curious to hear about too. And so without further ado, please welcome to the stage the founder and executive director of Code for America, Jen Pahlka.
I saw this space when it was just raw, and Andrew and Mika were so excited about it, and it's a very different thing to hear about it, and it's a very different thing to see it full of people and full of connections. You have been wonderful friends to us since the very beginning. But congratulations on this amazing space and this amazing community. Unbelievable. I feel like you're introducing me, but I feel like I know a lot of you in the audience, so this is very much home and family in many ways. But I hope some of you in the audience are coming because you're curious about this topic. I'm just going to sort of quickly set up some of the framework, and then we're going to have some other folks, some really fantastic folks who are working on this issue, talk about what they're doing, and hopefully change your minds about government and how government can work. We all know it doesn't work as well as it could today, but there are so many people who are making it work. And I'll get my part out of the way really quickly so we can hear from all of them. But part of what I want to set up here is really what's at stake. When government doesn't work, is it just that some big institution that's around that imposes things on us isn't as optimal as it could be? Or is it really fundamentally that we are not working? Is it something other, or is it something about us? And I think from the examples that you'll hear, you'll get a bit of a different sense of what we mean. That's me. Here we go. So, as Andrew mentioned, I've been running Code for America since 2010, but I took a year off and I went to work for this guy in federal government. His name is Todd Park. I think of him as a modern-day saint. He asked me to come to DC because he had created a program that was modeled after the Code for America Fellowship Program. And I'm going to mention that in passing and call out that there are several ex-Code for America fellows in the audience, starting with Matt and Rebecca, and Ariel, but there are probably others. Jeremy is here too, and so if you want to know more about what that fellowship looks like, you can ask them afterwards. It may come up in Q&A. But it's a fantastic program. Todd said, we're doing this in the federal government now. We're bringing innovators in to work with people and agencies. Can you help me run this program? And I said, yes, I'd love to do that, but I think there's something else that we need to do if we really care about government working, as we say, for the people and by the people in the 21st century. There we go. Something really interesting has happened overseas in the UK. They created something there called the Government Digital Service. It's run by a fantastic guy who will be in town in New York this weekend named Mike Bracken, who was formerly the head of digital for The Guardian, so he really gets consumer tech. They consolidated technology for the UK government under him, and he brought in some of the best folks from the technology industry. And they've done a number of things. Sorry, this is a little clicker happy. they started by just pulling all of the information into one place, so just fixing publishing, and not just pulling content into somebody's CMS, but making the content that they offer to the citizens of the UK really simple and easy to understand, and doing what we call packing light, bringing over just the critical information. And they moved on to transactions, and their transactions, the 25 exemplar transactions that they have moved over to the new platforms in the government digital service are as simple and easy to use in many cases as ordering a cab or ordering something, maybe a few more questions than Uber asks you. But we're talking about an experience that's consistent with the best consumer experiences that you might have today. Unbelievably well done. Okay, this is bouncing a lot. But not only do they now have more users and happier users, but they're not saving 10% or 20%. They're spending a sixth of what they spent previously to get these amazing results and have people love their interactions with government. And I said, Todd, we really need to do that in the US. We can't just keep thinking about innovation, we've also got to think about the basics. And Todd finally said, yes, let's do that. Let's do an American GDS. And I came into federal government working with John Farmer in the back there. Hi, John. And we said we would do this, and we got a few months into many, many PowerPoints and many, many meetings with the deputy secretaries of every agency in federal government, and then this happened, which I hope you all remember because it was headline news for a while. We tend to forget these things. But we spent a long time trying to pass the Affordable Care Act, trying to make sure that we had a way to get most of the people in our country who don't have health care covered. And for all of that effort and all of that political will, we almost lost the ACA because we can't put up a website that works. The truth of the matter is that, so it was terrible, if you remember. This was my favorite. There were so many great headlines. This one said, you know, healthcare.gov could have been worse. For instance, logging on could have permanently blinded you. That's what the coverage was like. It does not instill trust and faith in government when we do things like this. But there's obviously a happy ending to the story. But when we were looking at this and we realized that this was the moment when people in federal government would realize that you can try to pass a law, but if you can't implement it, you can't govern. We realized that this story had already played out a bunch of times before. So maybe, I'm not sure how many people are aware of the student loan debt that we carry, $1 trillion in federal student loan debt. We created a fantastic policy to make that, to alleviate that. We have many, many people defaulting on their federal student loan debt. But most people who carry that debt qualify for something called income-based repayment, IBR. And it says basically, you can, rather than defaulting, you can pay us back as you have income, at a percentage of that income. But if you go to refinance your debt, it starts with trying to log on to the system. The first thing that asks you, and you can't get any further, is your FAFSA number. Anybody here have student loan debt and know their FAFSA number? Almost nobody does. So there is an incredibly low. Oh, you do? Okay. I don't think you're going to qualify for the program, but you can try it and give us some user experience feedback. But and how much energy went into creating a policy that allows people to refinance their student loan debt? It's something like 3% of eligible people take advantage of it because the interface is terrible. I'm not talking about the website being down. This is a user interface failure, and it's endemic in government. And that's what we really found out when we were looking, when we were trying to sort of contextualize what is happening around us when we've created this policy and we can't actually implement it. The other thing that we realized, though, and this ties back to the work that we were doing at Code for America at the time, was why was healthcare.gov such headline news? Well, it was the president's signature policy initiative, and it was almost, on the verge of literally failing. But it's also because middle-class people were asked to use it. If you are poor in America today, and you are dealing with something like food stamps, and Matt's going to talk about access to human services, or you are dealing with the criminal justice system or many other systems, you are using something as bad as healthcare.gov probably every day. You're calling into an office, you're waiting on hold to talk to somebody for hours and hours, time that you don't have if you're trying to support a family on 2 jobs. And I think this is really this is an example of that. So in California, we have one of the lowest rates of adoption of CalFresh, which is our state's nutrition assistance program. And part of the reason is because that's the process for signing up. Would any of you do that for $35 a week? If anyone's on food assistance, I apologize, because you probably have. That was a different system here in New York, where we're doing it, I think, much better. At Code for America, we look at things like that from the user perspective. What is the user having to go through in order to deal with these government benefits? And we think the system should look a little bit more like this. This is running on a low-end Android phone that many people of low income have. It's about 7 screens, and at the end, you're going to sign with your finger and hit submit, and you've applied for CalFresh. That's how it ought to be, and that's what we can make it be. By the way, this is, I think the slide is out of order, but this is one of the notices that you get if you're on CalFresh and they need more documentation from you, which almost everybody gets. And it's a lot of legal language that our fellows read. In fact, Rebecca, I think, was the person who signed up for CalFresh. Thank you for doing that. And you can, I mean, normally at times I'll actually read people the slide just so that you can be absolutely bored and terrified, but you can talk to Rebecca about all of the notices that she got when she was enrolled in food stamps and how difficult it was to understand them. And how many times did you fall off the rolls, Rebecca?
Well, I was trying.
You okay?
But,
trying to stay on, yeah.
No, like, we were seeing what happens when I stopped, but they kept, like, sending me mail for, like, a year after I moved.
Yeah. So lots of notices like this that are not exactly clear, simple, easy to use. What Rebecca's team eventually landed on, and I won't tell the whole story of how they got there, was that we can text message folks when they're about to fall off the rolls. And in limited pilot, that reduced the churn in the food stamps program by about 40%. We've been running this play of how to help people deal with government in a lot of ways. We went to Atlanta the year after Rebecca was there. We found out that if you get a very low-level violation, you're going to be a minimum about, an average of about 6 hours waiting in line to clear something like a traffic ticket or a moving violation. So again, if you have a job, you may be choosing between keeping that job or going and clearing that violation. And if you don't go clear it, you're going to get something called a bench warrant for your arrest, and the next time there's a minor violation, you're going to end up in jail. Ann Milgram, who's not here tonight, but does live in New York and runs the Arnold Foundation, got us excited about what could happen to make the criminal justice system better by telling me about how many people are stuck in our criminal justice system for administrative failures, essentially, for not being able to do things like clear a minor traffic violation. So, by the way, we use that same thing. The text messaging works very well, particularly with low-income communities. This is Sam Hashemi demoing CourtBot, which reminds you that you have a court date and you've got to come clear it. Or actually send you a message asking you giving you information about how to help clear that minor violation. But I don't know why it's doing that. But again, when Ann told me about the number of people who are clogging up our criminal justice system for really minor reasons, it really resonated with me. But then after Ferguson and I saw this chart, it ran a chill down my spine. Bench warrants do actually indicate civil unrest and the breakdown of society. That chart shows that in Ferguson there were 1.5 bench warrants per human being. This is a sign that something is very wrong, and it's happening all over this country. We cannot use technology necessarily to deal with entrenched racism. That's not what I'm saying, but I am saying that the number of people who have bench warrants should not be that high, and there are administrative and technological reasons that we can fix that. So we are working now particularly in these 3 areas: health, which has to do with access to human services, the safety and justice work that I alluded to just now, and our 3rd area is economic development, which we can talk about later. But what I really want to leave you guys with as we move on to the next part of the panel, maybe, I'll just say it. is that there are 1,000 problems like this that people in the technology industry have the skills and experience to help us fix. It is not about bringing some fancy new technology to the table. It's about a user-centered, iterative, and data-driven way of approaching these problems. That's what we are actually bringing to the table. And really, at the end of the day, this is a quote from Mikey Dickerson, who came to federal government to do that United States Digital Service, our answer to what they're doing in the UK, and is now carrying that on. No one is going to fix this for us. The people that you're going to hear from next are working on this. They are all doing this because they believe in serving the public, and they believe that government is critical to our functioning as a society, and critical to having this thing that we do together actually match our own personal values. But I'm going to talk a little bit later about what you could do to help further this. And in the meantime, let me share with you some of the stories of people who are actually doing this. So I'd like to invite my friend Matt Klein up. Is it Matt that's going first? Someone? Yes, okay. So Matt's also been a big supporter of Code for America and is now running the HHS Connect, and I will let you speak.
Thanks. Well, yes. So, yeah, it is great to be in a room full of people passionate about government IT, because as Jen said, this is a group of people who care about the way that technology and data and design can address fundamental concerns of our neighbors. And I want to thank Jen, just because when I was thinking about taking this job, she was a person I asked whether I should do it. And it was largely her inspiration that helped me take the role, and also to Andrew and Mika, whose vision for this place really is just amazing, and it's such a success. So I'm thrilled to be here. But the issues that government deals with at scale every day, issues of jobs, of crime, of education, of poverty, are the issues that, as Jen said, we need more people to address. We're in an era of new possibilities. Just like every other industry, the emergence of digital technologies, smartphones, expanding broadband access means that solutions to problems, and in the case of government, social problems, can be more scalable, more adaptive, more personalized than ever before. And so the question that we're confronting specifically in our office is, how can technology tools be used to address issues of poverty, of inequality, of opportunity? Can digital innovation be matched with the scale of government to make a difference in these issues? And as we know from the healthcare.gov story, the answer is yes. Not at the beginning, but at the end, when the right people got involved, problems could be solved. So I want to read a story about a family in the Bronx. And it's adapting a scenario that was written by a friend of mine, Tim Ross, who's a brilliant researcher, founder of Action Research Partners. Tim spent his career working on systems change. So this scenario is reflective of the stories of many families in New York City. And I want to warn you that there's no mention of APIs, there's no UI UX, there's no agile or lean. But if these are the kind of things that come to mind for you as I read this story, I hope you'll talk to us. Because it's the people like you who, when you hear stories, think data integration, where's that? Why is that missing? Those are the folks who need to join government. If we are to make it really, truly, Tim, a platform for equity and opportunity, then, as Jen said, it's all of us who are going to have to join to make it so. So imagine a family and government staff, all with the best of intentions. Imagine Juan and Maria, a married couple in their late 30s who have 2 children, Sophia and Jorge. They are also foster parenting their nephew, Marcus. The family has hit hard times. Juan has helped provide for his family by working at construction jobs, but recently he hurt his back and is unable to work. Maria is a substitute at 2 home daycare centers, earning the minimum wage, but her hours are irregular. Marcus, their foster child, is usually a decent student, but his grades have started to fall. He has not seen his mother for some time and occasionally skips school to hang out with friends. Sophia is a gifted science student heading to middle school. Young Jorge qualifies for some special education services, but Juan and Maria both feel he can benefit from extra help. As Juan and Maria's savings dwindle, they've gotten behind on their rent. They apply for and receive SNAP and cash assistance, but it's not enough to make ends meet. Marcus's foster care caseworker, his third, is concerned about Marcus's school performance and thinks he might be depressed. Her agency might be able to arrange some counseling for Marcus, so she calls his school guidance counselor twice, but only reaches voicemail. A week later, the guidance counselor returns the call, only to learn that the caseworker has left the agency. Because of Juan's health issues and Maria's hours, neither is able to attend parent-teacher conferences. The deadline slips by for submitting Maria's choice for middle school. Rather than a middle school that specializes in science education, she's assigned to her zone school. Jorge's special education services are renewed, but with no special extra changes. With the family now months behind on rent, the landlord starts eviction proceedings and tells them to vacate. Desperate, Maria calls the Department for Homeless Services hotline, who refers her to a home-based center, a homelessness prevention program. Maria misses work again, as the program has many families waiting for help. After a screening and risk assessment, the home-based worker tells Maria that the family has not, in fact, been evicted and arranges a one-shot rent arrears payment. With money stretched tight, the family pairs expenses, cutting off cable and internet access, terminating Juan's cell phone contract, and eating lightly. And then another turn of events. Unknown to Juan and Maria, Marcus skipped school for most of the past month, though he did keep attending his after-school art class. The attendance officer cannot reach Juan on his cell phone, so she makes a report of educational neglect. An ACS child protection specialist arrives, sees the apartment without much food, half in boxes because of the threat of eviction, and decides to move Marcus to a new foster home in Brooklyn. In addition to the trauma of having Marcus removed, his exit means the family no longer receives a foster care payment. Worse, the daycare centers where Maria works find out about the investigation and tell her she can no longer work for them. So the scenario ends there, and we don't know what happens next. We do know that the family got some help from government and from the nonprofit organizations they dealt with. They got the one-shot rental assistance, they got food assistance, some income support. But the city and nonprofits, we expended significant sums of money and time, and we didn't stop the family's downward spiral. And these are the challenges that we're facing. Every month, about 100,000 people in New York City apply for SNAP benefits, and at any given time, about 500,000 are eligible but not receiving them. Families are entering homeless shelters when, in fact, they qualify for rental assistance. There are after-school programs who are dealing with tens of thousands of students who don't know whether those students are in class during the day. And so do you think there's a role for technology and data to help? And my office oversees the benefits eligibility practices. Ariel's going to talk a little bit more about that. And tools to facilitate data integration in social services. And we're hiring for a digital product development team and need talented, passionate people. In fact, we'll take some disgruntled 18Fers if you're out there also. So please, if any of this resonates with you, if these are the kinds of problems that you want to use technology and data to solve, then corner Ariel or corner me after the panel. In an age of communication, of predictive analytics, of build, measure, learn, these are the news stories that we want to write for families like Juan and Maria's, and I hope you'll join us and do that. So thank you very much.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jascha Franklin-Hodge. I'm the Chief Information Officer for the City of Boston, formerly co-founder and CTO at Blue State Digital. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my experiences working in government with technology, trying to implement some different ways of doing things. So first off, make the clicker work. There we go. That's me. That's Boston. So what's the problem that we're dealing with? We all know about healthcare.gov. We've heard the stories, we read the news. But this is not some isolated problem that happens at the federal level. This is systemic in the way that technology and government intersect. An example from Massachusetts, this is the Connector healthcare site, which was the state version of the healthcare.gov enrollment site. This website cost $174 million to build, and my fonts got really small here. The website didn't work. The website was basically a failure. It was unable to verify people's eligibility when it launched, and so the result is that the state said, we're just going to give everyone who applies Medicaid benefits, which is generous, but has cost the state an estimated $203 million in Medicaid benefit overpayment, now leading to a fairly substantial, or contributing to a fairly substantial budget deficit for the year. So this is, this is not just a federal problem. Well, let's talk about the city. So I joined the administration in end of July last year, and they came with a lot of big ideas. I like Matt, was partly talked into government service by Jen Pahlka, and have been heavily influenced by the way that Code for America and the people like all of you think and what we're trying to do. And I came in and said, we're going to do things differently. We're going to change it up. Well, the very first contract that I was asked to award, it was already a completed RFP, was for a mainframe upgrade. $5 million, which was being purchased for a $20 million 2-year-long software upgrade project. This was not even like a major version release. This is a point upgrade. So this is, at every level of government, we're seeing approaches to technology that, to those of us who work in this industry, just doesn't make sense. This is not how we should be working in the 21st century. So let's talk about why this happens. And I want to start with how we usually go about buying and implementing technology. It looks like this. This is an RFP for, I think this is security systems. The way we buy technology is we sit down in a room over the course of months, and we try to figure out every last detail of what it is that we think we want. We write it all down. We create these documents that can be from 50 to 200 pages long, and then we wrap a whole bunch of really impenetrable legalese around it and a lot of requirements that are really difficult to understand and follow, and then we put it up on a website that's hard to access and hope that people come and offer us really great technology solutions. And the result is more or less what you would expect. It's the things that you see with healthcare.gov. So what we're trying to do, this is a big and systemic problem. Some of it is based in statutory issues. Some of it is based in cultural issues. And it's going to take a long time to change. But I want to talk about some of the ways that we're working to try to shift momentum into a better direction. So first, and again, I apologize, these slides are illegible here. We're trying to buy a process rather than buy a product. Those of you who have built software know that you never know when you start out exactly what you need or what your product is going to look like when you're done. We use an approach, a process for development that allows us to learn as we go, to iterate, to interact with customers, to get feedback, to build on that. When you take this RFP approach and you try to get every detail down, you are guaranteeing that you will be wrong because you will never know at the outset. So instead of taking a procurement and saying, we're going to say exactly what we want at the end of this, we're saying, here's the process we want to buy. We want it to be iterative. We want it to be engaged with our customers, internal or external. We want it to be something that gives us a higher confidence of success. So we have 2 projects right now that are going through this process, and we've tried to turn the normal approach to RFPs while staying within the procurement law, turn it on its head and try to build something that allows us to get the kind of development approach that we think will actually lead to successful outcomes. Another thing we're doing is trying to not just do business with the usual suspects. You look at that 70-page RFP that I scrolled for you, that's a difficult document to respond to. And most of the companies that actually win bids for government business, their biggest skill and the thing they're best at is responding to government RFPs. It's not actually implementing technology. And so we're trying to be very deliberate about how we cast a wider net for people who can work with us, whether they be companies that can bid on procurements, whether they can be members of the community who can participate in projects that we're doing. This is a site that we put together for a website redesign that we are about to undertake. We are aggressively marketing our RFPs. We are trying to explain our mission. We are trying to rewrite the language of the RFPs themselves to make them more user-friendly. And then we are going out there to tell the story of why somebody should come and work with us. Because if we don't do this, we're going to get the same people that like to bid on the healthcare.govs coming to try to rebuild the city's website, and we're going to spend too much money and not get a good enough outcome for that. What else? So it isn't just about procurement. And this is one of the big changes that we're starting to see in government is we have to build internal capacity. This is the mayor's data dashboard. And when I came into City Hall, this was a system that had been built by a vendor. We really had no idea how it worked. We just knew that it did. When we wanted to make changes, it cost thousands of dollars and took weeks to change. And we found ourselves in this position of saying, wait a second, this is supposed to be the mayor's dashboard, the real-time thing that tells him what's important today in the city, and it takes weeks to change. So we rebuilt this on a platform that we could run ourselves, that we could manage, that we could change, we could add visualizations. If the mayor had a question, if there was an issue in the news, we were talking hours or days, not weeks and months, and very little cost to expand the utility of this. This is just one small example of how we're trying to do this, and we have a lot of work to do if we're going to really develop the capacity to build true products within government. But we have to start. We have to make these investments in government. Because even when we're not building it ourselves, if you're going into a procurement and the only thing you as a government employee know how to do is run a procurement process, you're not going to make very good choices about who you bring in. So having some of that technical expertise inside government is going to be key to solving this challenge. Other folks have talked about this, but building with your customers. Sometimes those customers, if you're building things that citizens interact directly with, those are your customers. A lot of what we do is actually building tools for government, tools that people within the city use. We built a map for our traffic management center that combines data from the app Waze with a variety of city data about the roadways. And the idea was to give them a better tool to help them manage congestion on the roads. So instead of designing it all out and writing it all down and then building it in a bunker somewhere, we spent a lot of time in the traffic management center. We sat, we watched, we learned, we saw how the engineers operated, we asked them questions, we showed them mock-ups, we got feedback, we engaged, we iterated, and the net result was that in a relatively short amount of time, we had something that was now integral to their day-to-day operations. We have the advantage of the technology department being inside City Hall, so we're trying to do hallway testing. There are a lot of people in City Hall waiting in line, usually not too happy, and if you come up and say, can you help us make the process of getting a permit for your moving van easier? They'll say, hell yes. So we're trying to use those opportunities to actually learn from our customers, even if it's just showing somebody something on a tablet and saying, what do you think? That can be how we try to get through some of these design by remote control problems that we face with these technology projects. The last thing I want to talk about is just that we're trying to change the culture. A lot of this is the reason that healthcare.gov is healthcare.gov and the state health site is the way it isn't because there's some law that says it has to be that way. By and large, it's that way because that's how it's always been. That's how we know to buy technology. That's how technology gets built. You write the document, it goes out, you bid it, all this stuff. So we're trying to show people inside government that there can be a better way. This is a photo from a hackathon that we ran recently. And there's a lot of reasons to do hackathons. There's also plenty of reasons why they're not necessarily all they're cracked up to be. But one of the biggest benefits we've seen in running a hackathon in government is the light bulbs that go on when people see product being developed in a way that looks completely unlike what they're used to in government. The effect that this has on government employees, the way this shifts expectations, the way that this engages them to think differently about their products, that's a huge part of the value that we see here. But we know that culture change is always a long-term project. It will not be done when I leave my office, but we will hopefully be moving the needle in a pretty significant way. And the last thing I want to leave you with, and I think we all know this, is that this is not a small project. Doing this kind of change at every level of government is going to take a lot of people, a lot of time, and a lot of energy and input. And it isn't just people like me who go into government to work there. It's organizations like Civic Hall and Code for America. It's companies that build new types of technology that learn how to engage with government in more productive ways. There is an ecosystem that needs to develop and a culture change that needs to happen. All of you, hopefully, are doing your part to make that possible. There is an incredible wealth of opportunity. And I think as you've heard from some of the other speakers today, what's at stake here isn't just tech. It isn't even just taxpayer dollars, although that's really important. What's at stake here is about the success or failure of government. And in the 21st century, the success or failure of government technology is going to determine the success or failure of all of the policy initiatives, all of the social justice initiatives, all of the things that we look to government to try to advance. And that's the work that we have to do, and that's why it's worth it. So thank you very much.
Good evening. I'm Mashariki, Chief Analytics Officer for the City of New York. Thank you, Code for America and Jen Pahlka, for inviting me to come talk to you guys. I have a distinct opportunity here to talk about not so much MODA, which the whole MODA team is here, Mayor's Office of Data Analytics. Shout out to them. But I'm going to talk about my previous job. I've been in this role close to 5 months now. So my previous role was Chief Technology Officer at the Office of Personnel Management, a federal agency. So I came into government via the White House Fellows Program, and just for clarity, that's not the Presidential Innovation Fellows, not Presidential Management Fellows, but the White House Fellows Program. And I worked at OPM, and then I transitioned into becoming OPM's first Chief Technology Officer. So let's see if this works for me. And I apologize in advance because I don't like talking to slides. So this is sort of, I'm out of my wheelhouse. So the challenge. What Jen asked me to talk about was the challenge that we faced at OPM, which was digitizing the federal retirement process. So OPM handles for the federal government everything from hire to retire when it comes to federal employees. And so on the retiree side, you know, when you have a federal employee that spends 30, 40, 50 plus years, or even 2 years, and they're ready to retire from the federal government, you, as a public servant, they deserve a level of respect and a level of, to be able to do what they want to do when they want to do it, which is retire. What I always used to say was, I want to make a retirement system that allows someone who is 2 o'clock in the morning, is watching TV, up for whatever reason, watching TV, and they see a commercial about the Bahamas, and they decide right then and there that they want to retire. They spent 40 years in the federal government, and they want to retire right then and there at that moment and begin to get their annuity checks. They should have the opportunity to do that. They should be able to turn on their computer and retire right there. And so so the challenge was, what a lot of people don't know or do now, post the Washington Post article that was done on OPM, in Boyers, Pennsylvania, at this place called Iron Mountain, which is literally a cave, a mine. If you go in there, you actually see where they used to stick the dynamites to like expand the mine, and there's rocks like literally still falling. I took a couple home with me. Is where every single piece of information about every single federal employee that existed ever exists. So there are miles and miles upon miles and rows of paper. Literally, Elliot Ness's information is down there, right? Every single federal employee that existed. And so how do we take that paper and digitize it so that we can have the information at a federal retiree's fingertips? The other challenge to that is OPM took this on in '97, and they spent close to $300 million and got bupkis for it, right? Absolutely nothing. And so now, in 2012, 2013, where it's my turn up to bat, one of the biggest challenges that we faced was everyone was gun shy. Right? Because heads rolled. When you spend $300 million and you get nothing for it, heads rolled, right? And a lot of people got pushed to jobs that they didn't want and got sent out to pasture and so on and so forth. And so now everybody is gun shy. No one wants to be the person that takes this on again, right? So that's a challenge in and of itself. So that's a challenge that not just, a programming language, a new technology, a brand spanking new fellow from whichever, whether it's Code for America or White House Fellow or Presidential Innovation Fellow or 18F, is going to be able to just solely use technology or their smarts to get people out of that space. And the example I'll use is people begin to be code shy, gun shy, but then they start doing things in half measures. So even if you have a smart idea, everyone sort of half does it, and then it turns out to be crap at the end, right? And so there were initiatives like that. We had ideas where we were doing crowdsourcing technology so that we would pay less and get a really robust system. But because no one wanted to put up the money, no one wanted to be the lead for that project, it turned out to not be successful when it could have been extremely successful. So that's what was facing me as the CTO and other leaders at OPM. So what I'm going to talk to you about are sort of the strategic and tactical ways that we began to push through this. So we thought strategically. One is we had all new leadership. So in 2013, we got a new director and her leadership staff, her senior staff, Catherine Archuleta. We appointed a new chief operating officer. We appointed a new CIO, and then myself, the new chief technology officer. So we had a really fully new and excited and relatively unafraid new leadership. So now there was no one at the top saying, well, let's not do this. Everyone was saying push, 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 right? Second is OPM had, in the sub-basement, the previous director of OPM traveled to Silicon Valley and saw how they were working, so he said, let's create an innovation space in OPM. Not the basement, the sub-basement. So they cleaned it out, removed all of the gunk that was in this one room, and turned it into what we refer to as the innovation lab, because we wanted people to start thinking differently and acting differently. So that was the first thing, was to get the employees of OPM to start thinking differently about solving this problem. There was no cell, that's right, no cell service. It was so loud, like every HVAC system was in there, so you could barely hear each other talking. But this is what it created. This is what it created. So no longer were people sort of, now places like Civic Hall understand that, right? But when you're talking about OPM, which is not one of the sexiest federal agencies out there, right? To create this innovative space was, a feat in and of itself. And so we created, and so these are the kind of meetings we had, people standing up, people being involved, no one's, sitting there, with their arms folded, everyone is involved in talking and being engaged about these ideas. So then we attack the problem holistically. Process improvement, customer service, and IT solutions, which is what I was over. Process improvement. The first thing was to go down to Boyer's and work with the people who were hand doing these files and understand. So what we didn't want to do was automate a bad process. So we sat with them and we said, well, what's the process? How do you do this? Why does it take you so long to process someone's retirement? And we found some really interesting stuff. People would say, well, we double, triple, quadruple check these numbers. Well, why do you double, triple, quadruple check the numbers? Well, because the law says that we should. Which law? Point to it. Well, I don't know. The person who had this job before me told me I need to do that. And then you finally get to someone that says, well, we do it because our manager said we have to do it, right? And so you leaned out the process. Customer service, that's very important. And then IT solutions. So the next one was be inclusive. We gave everyone, when I went through the IT process, I made sure everyone had a seat. So when you spend over $300 million and are unsuccessful, there are a lot of naysayers that will tell you, you're doing the wrong thing, you're going the wrong route, do not do this. I promise you, this is not good for you and your career. I invited them to the meetings. They needed to be there. The people who felt like we can do anything we want needed to be able to have the conversation with those folks. So we wanted to give them time. We wanted to hear their voices, and so we made them a part of the discussion. I needed to hear what, some of the mines and the traps were going to be. And so that was strategically. Now, we started to think tactically. Now, here's some of the tactical things that we did. I put this slide in here because I knew it. So really quick, I know Jascha talked really eloquently about the procurement process. One of the things we held was an industry day. So we literally we went to the small business office, we called all sorts of people, other agencies, and we literally said, invite all of the vendors that you know that are smart at solving this problem and bring them to OPM. We sat them down. OPM has a big auditorium. They were all in the auditorium. It was over 80 vendors. And we had the retirement community and the IT team, and we sat there and we told them our problem. And all they did was listen. They didn't talk. They listened. And then we posted up process diagrams, XML diagrams, data diagrams, all sorts of information on FedBizOps website, and said, if you think you can solve our problem, you heard us talk about our problem, if you think you can solve our problem, it was like 5-10 pages worth of stuff, build prototypes for us. So then the next thing we do, we had people come in and show us prototypes. So again, we didn't want to send out this 76 pages is an executive summary in the federal government. Federal government, we get to about 300. So you guys are lucking out on that one. But so we had the vendors come in. Before we put one word on a RFP, we had them do prototypes of how they could solve the problem, because we wanted to see who was thinking about what. And so so this is before Mikey Dickerson and his team came in, and so when they landed, it was almost perfect timing. So then they put out the tech FAR, so I had my team go read the tech FAR, because I don't have time to read it, so you read it for me and tell me what we're doing right. And they had this long list of things that you needed to check off during this procurement process, and we were like, okay, we got about 3 of them, but let's start adding on. And so it was almost perfect that Mikey Dickerson and his team came. And so the other thing that we did was identify allies. I was going to say, put in this slide, we identified the 5th column, but that's somewhat pejorative. We identified allies. Quick story, there was an instance when I first became CTO, and someone very high up in the IT briefed the new director on a modernization effort. One of the director's senior advisors came to my office and said, Amin, there's someone down here that reports to that person that says that what that person briefed the director is about a 2-year-old solution that's just been sitting with and collecting dust. And when the director called for, somebody to brief to him on that, he just dusted it off and went up. And so there was someone who reported to that person who said, I don't want anyone to know that I'm doing this, but I'm trying to let you guys know you should think a little more smartly and innovative about this. Like literally they ushered the guy into my office, because I sat in the director's suite. He didn't want anyone to see him coming to my office, and he sat down and he explained to me, I'm not saying this is the wrong solution. What I'm saying is you guys should at least think about it now and come up with something that could possibly be a newer, better, smarter solution. So what we started to do was say, there are people here who work at OPM who've been working here 20, 30, 40 years. We're not looking just for the 24, 25-year-olds that have these smart, swanky, super cool, innovative ideas. There are people 30, 40 years here at OPM that want to change the culture, that want to contribute, that are thinking innovatively. And so let's find them. Let's go get them. Let's get the 5th column, and let's take this thing on. And that's what we did. Be disruptive. No, seriously, piss people off, right? And there were instances. What I would say, I'll end off by saying this. So there was an instance when I literally walked in. I must have been on the job for 3-4 months, and I walked in, and one of the security guys, security guys at federal agencies, city, they know everyone, and they know all the gossip and so on and so forth. And the security guy said to me, you're really making a lot of people upset, right? I said, well, who? She didn't want to tell me, so I just kept going. But at my disposal, you have any number of levers to pull to be successful. On one end of the spectrum, it's giving people a bunch of high fives and pats on the back and telling them that they're superheroes and they're doing a great job. And then the other end of the spectrum is every now and then there's a good reason for a strategic, you know what, I don't give a damn, get it done, right? And so every now and then you have to take on people like that. And I've had to do that. And you have, within that spectrum, you have other levers. And what we had to do, was be prepared to use everything. across that spectrum. And we did that. And we're in a good space now because of that. Thank you.
I don't think I'm supposed to be up here right now, but I just wanted to, we're going to move into the panel discussion. I wanted to thank Jascha and Amin and Matt, not just for great talks, but for service. Public service is a big deal to me. I think of service, and I've seen people in service work 20-hour days, 100 days straight, and these people are doing the work that we all need them to do. So I'd just like to have a big round of applause for the people. Thank you. Thank you for working for us. I also want to thank Stephen Levy, who's going to come up and moderate this discussion with us, for doing his job as a journalist.